welcome to the May Day public lecture by the Institute of Work, Employment and Society. So I started with an attempt trying to tell all of us why we're here, but the next person can definitely do it better. Let's welcome the Acting Director of the Institute, Dr. Mrs. Erica Mamliosai, with a round of applause.
Senior members here present and distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. So as part of our efforts to honor the vital contribution of workers to national development, we gather here under the general theme, and I quote, celebrating workers in a changing world, unquote. This theme resonates strongly with the current global context where technological innovation, shifting political economies, and socio-environmental challenges continue to redefine the world of work. Building on this broader theme, we have chosen to narrow our focus this year to, and I quote, lessons from experiences, a civil society leader's journey in a changing world, unquote. This refined theme provides an opportunity to spotlight the evolving role of civil society actors in shaping work and employment in today's dynamic environment. It is a reflection of our intent to deepen the dialogue between academia and civil society. That is, two forces that when aligned can significantly influence national policy, drive social justice, and improve working conditions for all. Our keynote speaker for today's lecture has been carefully selected alongside other distinguished speakers to bring forth solidarity messages to complement the celebration. These voices will help us probe how the shifting global landscape, especially the sudden withdrawal of USAID funding, intensifying trade tensions such as US tariff wars, and broader geopolitical shifts have affected development projects and by extension labor, employment, and society at large. So listening to the experiences of this seasoned speaker who serves on a foundation dedicated to empowering civil society through various initiatives will offer valuable insights into issues that academia can investigate and develop solutions for the benefits of civil society organizations, society and employment in general. Star Ghana Foundation demonstrated foresight by focusing inward through philanthropy and appear to have made significant progress. We are also privileged to have a diverse of inspiring group of solidarity speakers. Unfortunately, two of them have been called into an emergency meeting, but then we have one whose contribution, he's actually a seasoned civil society leader with grassroots experience in urban slums and informal workspaces. These diverse perspectives will help illuminate intersectionality of work, identity, and resilience. They underscore the reality that the world of work is not monolithic, but deeply intertwined with social, economic, and political structures. At UPSA particularly, within IWES, which is the Institute of Work, Employment and Society, we recognize the immense value that civil society organizations bring to the national discourse. As a professional university, we stand to benefit tremendously by fostering collaborative relationships with civil society organizations, whether through tailor-made training programs, coaching and mentoring, commissioned research, or policy advisory services. Such partnerships are essential to enhancing the capacity and sustainability of organizations that serve on the front line of social transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we engage in these discussions ahead, I invite each of us to approach this lecture with an open mind and a critical lens. Let us thoughtfully reflect on the practical insights, strategic ideas, and collaborative opportunities that can emerge from this platform. This is not merely a ceremonial gathering. It is a moment for collective reflection and purposeful engagement. As we commemorate May Day 2025, IWES UPSA extends heartfelt salute to all hard-working staff and management of UPSA. We thank you for your dedication and contributions to shaping the future of work and society. We hope today's lecture will inspire new thinking, spark dialogue, and sow the seeds for impactful partnerships. Long live IWES, long live UPSA, long live Ghana. Thank you.
At this point, we'll invite the Executive Director of the People's Dialogue, Farouk Brahma, with a round of applause as he shares with us his solidarity message. And let me add that he was actually my lecturer years ago at the Institute of Local Government Studies.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm not used to doing this kind of presentations, but then I think the VC is not here. So all protocols are observed. My name is Farouk Brahma, like he said. I'm very happy to be here on this May Day celebration. Mine will purely be a conversation that we want to have. And I'm thanking the organizers for inviting me. I'll dedicate my solidarity to the unsung heroes. And my life has generally been around working with informal sector dwellers, people in slums and the youths. For the last 20 years or so, that is where I focus. So my work would more speak to that issues. My journey of the world of work started with the Center for Public Interest Law, CEPL. Coincidentally, my boss is currently the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine. And so I was exposed to human rights at a very tender age. Right from school, I worked with Dr. Ayine and a host of other political dignitaries today. And I'm just trying to lay the foundation for how CSO workers will change over time. In that work, by 2003, I had moved on to found an organization called People's Dialogue, which was focusing on mobilizing urban poor groups. The groups comprise Federation of the Homeless People, the youth in slums. We look at the Kaya, and then interestingly, there was a group called the Railway Slum Dwellers. And I was wondering, what do you want around the railway land? And yet they were living there. So we mobilized them for change. Mr. Chairman, starting as a human rights advocate, like I said, midway along the line, with the changing conditions and socioeconomic situations, some of us found ourselves to move from one aspect of our civil society work to another. And that's when I had a stint with the IWES. Like he said, I had to go into the classroom. After 10 years, I felt some of these issues are supposed to be grounded in academia. Because at one point, we work in our siloed approach as professionals, and then the academics who work to teach the young ones are not with us. And so I moved into the academia and I was offered opportunity to teach. It was during that time that I realized that there's an intersection between the work we do and what the professionals do and the academics do. Today I'm here to provide this whole solidarity for my group that I represent, and I would want to mention specifically that my current research work, which is important for me to share, has to do with some collaborative research that we're doing with the University of Manchester. It actually offers opportunity for academia and professionals to work together. It's quite some heavy amounts of UK pounds that has been set aside for 12 African cities to conduct collaborative research. The issues we focus on are mostly around issues of youths in livelihoods. We are looking at environmental concerns and the like. I would want to move closely to my experiences and to send a clear message that you need to address the complexities of our changing world. The youth of today, currently, we're talking of about 60 to 70% are youths. So our communities can be defined as youths. That's how I define them now. And when you move in there, you realize that the daily challenges of the youths in cities to work for employment and social harmony revolves around the kinds of works that they do. And I see it clearly that most of us have not taken time to study the impact of the working conditions and the lives of the youth and how it affects the entire country. And we feel strongly that if we are meeting today, we should also remember that there are thousands of young persons living in the slums who are actually underemployed. They work in under very precarious conditions, but they also provide very useful and essential services. And I think they are the ones that we are celebrating here today. I bring the voices of the Kayaye that carry our loads on the markets. When you go there on the busy day today, as I speak, over 15,000 of them are on the street of Accra carrying the family burden. You see them carrying the loads, but that load is actually a family burden. They've traveled all the way, migrated to the cities, and you see them carrying loads, but that load involves remittances to their parents back home. These are the people I want to celebrate. For academia, I wish to just say that we need to decolonize knowledge. I'm part of a group on knowledge decolonity. What are we saying? Here we are arguing that some of the impositions we have from our Western academics do not really speak to our context, and we would want to invite academia to join us so that together we can create local context that speaks to us. Let me just use I hear a word called Gen Z, Auntie. With Auntie Esther here, and I hear that word called Gen Z, and they said something is called Alpha, and they'll be moving to Beta, right? Good. Now, these Gen Zs have a unique characteristic. They are more resilient, they are dexterous, they want to be adaptive, they have no time to waste, they are short-termist, they want to live their life now and also in the future. Now, when you work with kinds of the Gen Zs that we're dealing with today, you need to be very smart and adaptive and also change. So as a CSO person, we took the trouble of changing and adapting. And we realized that the Gen Zs of Ghana would vary from the Gen Zs of the US based on the conditions that you find. These guys are in the hustle economy, and you know what it means to be in the hustle economy. They are actually, we call it pa. I think you are familiar with that word. And others too call it boys abre. And all of these messaging that were coming, I don't think the academics were watching. The people in the arts and culture, there's a film from is it Kuma Wood, right? It's called Boys Abre, right? But Boys Abre is a story that everybody must watch. It is telling us that our economies are not working. People are choosing their own pathways. They have to make a living through thick or thin. And I think these are the people that I want to celebrate here this morning. I also just want to say these last few words to say that the informal economies function as a lifeline for the urban youth. And all these guys who work in there are supposed to be celebrated. We have another group called the youths or migrants in informal waste workers. These are a huge chunk of people providing essential services, but unfortunately we don't seem to value them. Today I'm here to say that we say are equal to all of these people who provide these services. You go to Accra, if they don't collect waste for 1 week, I know the whole city will turn upside down. Unfortunately, let me just use an African proverb, which says that until there's a boil on your buttocks, you don't see the essence of your buttocks. So once you walk freely and sit freely, you feel all this well. But the day you have a boil on your buttocks, you begin to value the importance importance of, sorry, I'm using Bataks before Antiesta and Alhaji, but that's the word. I would also just want to say that for the academics, and then the people, why? Because I'm here, we really value the work you do. We want to say are equal to all the teachers. Everybody was taught in one way or the other. But believe you me, for the Gen Zs and the Alphas, some of them are being taught from the AI. So again, teachers, we know you've taught everybody. We are aware of the challenges you go through, and we continue to hail you on this day. Let me salute the tech-based transportation operators, the nannies, the domestic health workers, the house helps, the gardeners, the cleaners, the restaurant workers. All of these workers out there need some support from us, and we think that academia can provide a huge learning and research in these areas. I've lately been using a lot around the developmental psychology framework, which allows me to see how these constraining working conditions of the youth affects their aspiration and what they achieve. To all of you, I say Ayuko, and I would want to end my conversation here with a last appeal. I conclude with a choboi. I'm told you cannot have a May Day without a choboi, so you would have to help me with a choboi. I know that TUC will do the chobois, but Farouk is here, and I have to say the choboi here. What I'm trying to point out is that the social protections regime that we have, we need to look at it again. We feel it doesn't embrace the informal sector properly. The informal sector workers are not really taken care of in the pension schemes that we have, and I want to put it before this August platform. And I would also want to say that His Excellency the President will have to consider resetting our national pension scheme. I move for some level of forensics and resetting of our pension schemes. Our pension funds are not alive. I think our pension fund needs some revival, and maybe it's for the academics and those of you who know what to do to revisit this whole pension fund. That is our life. Long live the youth in the hustle economy, the informal workers, home-based enterprises, and long live Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Farouk Brahma of the People's Dialogue. And you know, whenever you talk about the Gen Zs, it puts a smile on my face. Because per what I do, I've been trying to understand them for a very long time. So, you know, you get into where they sit, you try to understand them, and every day you are surprised. These days they like to work from home, but not every work can be done from home. So you meet a lot of them, you ask them, they say, oh, I'm into online business. Everybody you come and go, I'm into online business. Oh, I'm into online business. And the last time I was at a World Bank event, the question that came up was, so in future, what is going to happen now that all of you are working online? What if there's a problem? I mean, certain businesses can't be done online. But the good thing is that there are others who like to, work on the field. Are there any Gen Zs here? Oh, feel free to show up. And we say, there are a lot of them here. The last time I was at an AU event, they said we were talking for them, and that they had their own voices, so we should keep quiet, and they would, be able to say the things that affect them the most. I like them. They are very bold. They are not like us who are cowed into submission all the time. Anyway, clap for yourselves, the Gen Zs. Thank you very much, Farouk, which means we can now get to our keynote speaker. But before that, we would invite Professor Abigail Opoku-Mensah, who is Director, Research and Consultancy Center, to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Okay, so my task is very simple. I'm going to introduce the keynote speaker for our program this morning. Alhaji Ibrahim-Tanko Amidu is a social development expert with over 30 years, say 30 years, 30 years experience in development management, social policy, institutional and organizational strengthening. He has led the development and implementation of programs and initiatives aimed at improving governance of public goods and services delivery in our dear country. He is currently employed as the Executive Director of Star Ghana Foundation, a national center for active citizenship and local philanthropy. The foundation works to strengthen civil society and enable citizens to engage with state and the non-state actors to ensure accountable, transparent, and responsive governance. He was the program director of the Star Ghana program for 10 years, a multi-donor funded program to strengthen civil society, enhance the effectiveness of advocacy actions for inclusive access to quality public goods and services, and of course, to promote good governance. Alhaji Ibrahim-Tanko is a highly respected thought leader on issue of inclusive and sustainable development, peace and security, and good governance. He has spoken at and led discussions on these issues and topics at various international, national, and local fora. He has received numerous international and national awards. He was the first recipient of the World Bank's Leadership Prize for Social Accountability in Africa. He has also led or has been recognized by the civil society community in Ghana and internationally. He was made an honorary fellow by the Ghana Institute of Directors in 2018. He sits on boards of 6 international, national, and local civil society organizations. Ibrahim-Tanko holds a master's degree in social policy from the Center for Social Policy Studies, University of Ghana, Legon, and a bachelor's degree in administration from the School of Administration, University of Ghana, Legon. He is currently pursuing PhD in social policy at the University of Ghana, Legon. With a round of applause, a very big one. Let's welcome our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The senior members of the university community, UPSA, well, I was going to say my boss baby, but I don't see it in public. But my boss, my colleague, my friend, Dr. Erika Osai Mamle, students, colleagues, my elder brothers who have come here today to add to the pressure, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this privilege, this honor to speak at this year's May Day public lecture. I am grateful, I'm inspired, I'm humbled. And when I started the discussions with Dr. Erika about this, initially I said, oh, no problem. Then I went back and said, what am I going to talk about? First of all, we have an audience that I would have been more comfortable speaking with, you know. They say Gen Zs are the, listen, so our generation is what? The over 60s and the former baby boomers are here. And so tailoring your discussion in such a way, or your conversation, that it makes sense to both the Gen Zs, the Alphas, the baby boomers in between, it's really a task. And I was reminded of my experiences when I started having children decades ago. I loved telling them stories. So it started with reading stories to them. Reading, because I felt that, and I do know that storytelling, the stories we tell our children, the stories we tell ourselves, go a very long way in shaping our worldviews. They go a very long way in determining how we see ourselves, how we see our position in this world, and how self-confident we can be, and our children and our children's children can be in this complex world. So let nobody tell you that storytelling is not important. It was the storytelling about Christopher Columbus, about Azambuja, and about the pirates that came and robbed us that have made us up to this day to see those ones as our saviors instead of those who came and plundered us. So storytelling is really important, and I was telling them stories. They enjoyed it so much, I ran out of stories and began to dread, you go home in the evening, Daddy, tell us a story. And I said, hey, what am I going to say? So I started making up stories, but stories that resonated with them. Long story short, when the grandchildren started coming recently, I thought that, I have enough stories to tell these grandchildren. So I said, come, let me tell you a story. I started, and they were looking at me with straight faces. I finished, they said, but where is the Komodo dragon? I said, Komodo dragon, where is this word coming from? Then the one said, you didn't talk about the avatar. I think, I don't know. I was like, wow, So all the stories about the spider, about the distance just went over their heads. They were looking for stories about Avatar and Komodo and all those things. And so as I start to speak today, I'm wondering, at what point would we lose the Gen Zs and etc. when I start talking about Legon in the 1980s and etc. But I'll try to make this something that speaks to all of us. I think my second dilemma was the fact that I've been asked to talk about life, the experiences on the journey, leadership. But I feel you cannot talk about leadership, you cannot talk about even your work if you don't situate it within the context of your life's journey. If you don't situate it within that, because who you are today is a factor of who you have been. The journeys that you have undertaken have shaped who you are today. And therefore, I have to be partly autobiographical in this discussion. I know it is not about May-Day, but if I leave out the autobiographical aspect of my journey and just focus on the lessons, perhaps we may lose some of the context of what brought up these lessons and why they resonate and they're important to me. And of course, when you invite somebody over 60 to come and talk to you, you run the very huge risk of a journey down nostalgia. In our days. But one of my daughters has a very interesting way of bringing me down to earth. She says, yes, in your days you had single room facilities in Legon. You were only two in a room. You had cafeteria that served you breakfast, lunch, snacks. Why didn't you help to make sure that it continued? So whenever I start, you say, Daddy, you have failed. You came and met it, you enjoyed it. After you left, we lost it. So what have you done? So I'll try to temper the nostalgia with a heavy dose of realism that, yes, it was, we can talk about the good old days. But if we are talking about the bad new days, we should not absolve ourselves of the responsibility of the part that we have played to get us to where we are today. And then lastly, in the terms of the context, I asked on social media, what do you want me to talk about when I come here today? Because I was getting a bit confused and a bit worried. And I think that has even confused me the most, because the recommendations that I have had have ranged from very embarrassing situations that I went through when I was in Legon to some of my experiences. So yes, this is the context. And then the last caveat, I'm speaking in the university community. I've heard the kind of English that Dr. Mamele has used, and even my brother Farouk. but I'm not going to be able to make any citations or quotations. I hear when you come here and you talk, even if I'm saying that, TZ is the best food in the world, I have to start by saying that according to Farouk, Ofe Abuaji, and others, 2020, TZ is said to be, but please bear with me if I don't cite, but I'm basing that on the experiences I've gone through my 60-odd years. So who am I? I think somebody is famously said to have turned the who am I to whom am I. So whom am I? I think I grew up at a time when there was this whole thing that it was possible, irrespective of your background, irrespective of where you came from, it was possible to aspire to be who you were, to reach where you want to be, if only you applied yourself. I started schooling at a time when Nkrumah's accelerated education program took off, and you had all the secondary schools in the north. But I was also born at a time, so for me, I'm the first person in my community to have ever gone to the university or even the secondary school in those days. So it showed the kind of context. My father was an ex-policeman. For those who knew how the police was organized in those days, you had those they called the escort police. They wore these red faces, they wore these woolen jackets, even in the hot sun and etc. And they were kind of the non-literate people who were taken to do the muzzle work of the police. But he said, and he told me later, that for what he had gone through in order to get to where he was, he would make sure that none of his children went through that. So even though he was not literate, every term, when in those days in school, they would call your parents, everybody, and read your results, he just made sure that he was there. You come back from school, he will ask you to read to him. So even though he didn't understand, he would ask you to read. And so very soon we realized that just, even if it's a poem or something, recite it. Don't hesitate. If you hesitate, you'll be beaten because it meant that you didn't know. So just be very fluent in saying whatever you wanted to say. But the important thing was the personal interest that he took in the education of his children. The personal interest. Somebody who had never been to school. And it is out of that personal interest that the 15 children that he's had, everyone, except one who didn't stay with him, went to school, got an education. And so the importance of parental, involvement in the education of children, particularly in getting them to realize, don't go to school, just that it's the context within which education is important is something that we have overlooked. In this current, very busy world, we subcontract a lot of our responsibilities. And I'm not passing judgment, because if you are somebody who has to wake up at 4 a.m., leave for work, come home around 9, etc., definitely you have to subcontract some of the things. But in terms of the bringing up of the next generation, in terms of providing the proper context for making sense of this world, there's no way we can subcontract that. Neither to our teachers, neither to TikTok, neither to Facebook, and neither to their peers. That if we don't do that, if we lose that, then we will continuously be saying that, in our days it was so good and etc. So anyway, that was a bit of a digression. Then I went to secondary school in Avrongo, one of the best secondary schools anybody could ever attend in the country. And I acknowledge my two colleagues. Yes, Navasco, if you ask, we had folio numbers. Everybody was known by the folio number. I mean, your name wasn't important. So If we want to know whether you attended a good school, we'll ask you what is your folio number. Two things stood out for me in the secondary school. The first was the headmaster that we had. It was a Scot called MacDonald. The first thing that he inculcated was this, that responsibility for everybody. You have to be responsible for yourself, but you also have to be responsible for others in the school. So it's interesting that, we've been talking about inclusive education in Ghana all these years up till today. In 1974, you know what he did? He admitted 2 blind students, visually impaired students, to the 6th form in Nava School. The school had not been set up as a special needs education school, nothing. But he brought them in and said it was everybody's responsibility to ensure that the 2 students were part of the community, they studied, and etc. And you know the results? The 2 are, I think, about the first PhD blind students we've had in Ghana. One was the former Minister of Chieftaincy Affairs under President Mahama in 2012. And the other also, Dr. Dana, was the legal listener at the Attorney General's Department. So just imagine if all the schools, if all the headmasters, if all the school administrators had taken that hands-on approach to resolving the fundamental issues of our country, where would we be today? But now we are still waiting for funding to do the studies and to go on the learning visits and to write the policy and to validate the policy and to pilot the policy and to etc. And in the meantime, what is happening to students with special education needs? They are waiting. We have a few examples popping up here and there, but we need that approach that MacDonald, demonstrated, that it is possible within our communities, within our homes, within our societies, to take action. Today, I'm in Star Ghana and we're talking about active citizenship. What was more active citizenship than what he did in those days? The second, and I don't know how many minutes I have for this presentation, so I'm trying to listen. The second was the quite liberal atmosphere that he encouraged. You go for SRC meetings at the secondary school level, and the kinds of questions that you will ask him about school administration, about etc., And I think that was where I started beginning to be more conscious about what I could do, as a leader, as a student leader, and etc. We even went to the extent of, he liked lying under tractors and school. Whenever any of the school vehicles was broken, he would go and then be doing that. And we went for an SRC meeting and passed a resolution that he was embarrassing us in front of our peers whenever they came and then they saw him in all those teen distance. So this man went to Accra. Those days we were wearing this Bas 50 trousers and the guarantee shoes. And I heard he went to a shop and said, I want standard racing shoes. That he wanted shoes that race standards, And when he came back to Navrongo with his standard racing shoes, we were all, but it demystified leadership. He caned us, if you were caught in town and etc. But within that context, he demystified leadership. He made students part of the decision-making process, and out of practice, out of being involved, you evolve your leadership skills. You evolve, and that's why I say the journey makes you, not just the destination. And the last bit about Navasco is the fact that, we just had different clubs. So we had a current affairs club. Those days, no internet, nothing. So somebody will go and read something and then come to the current affairs club and we'll debate it as if we were in Afghanistan when the Soviets were invading, or, Jimmy Carter was running for president and etc. But again, it gave students an opportunity to broaden their minds, to debate, to have conversations. And that generation of students who passed through the school at that time were part of these discussions. I don't want to embarrass them by mentioning names, but you can see them at various levels of leadership in this country. And I think it's partly that atmosphere that school is not a place to go and be afraid. That school is not just a place to go and learn ABCD, but school is also a place where you go and develop and be nurtured. So enough of Nova School. Then I was admitted to the University of Ghana in 1980 to read administration. And in those days, you sit at home, you see your name in the papers and your hall and etc. So you just come and then go straight to the hall. But I told you that I grew up in a very poor family. My father was this police escort and etc. So when I was coming to the university, the thing was, how were you going to go? And he thought he was doing the best thing for me by taking one of the metal trunks, took it to the market, and got them to, the way they paint these trunks, black, then they are this yellow or whatever, half moons. So he took that to the market, got it painted, and brought it to me. That was what I was going to take to the university. I had never been to Accra before, so I didn't know what you could send and you couldn't send. Fast forward, we got to Accra. Those days, you couldn't get a taxi from the main gate. And I was admitted to Commonwealth Hall. You couldn't get a taxi. The metal trunk doesn't have wheels that you can pull. So what was the alternative? The alternative was to carry the trunk on my head. And I had 3 other colleagues. We came together from the north. So when we were entering the university campus and I was carrying my trunk, and they were wheeling their suitcases, as soon as we got in front of Kwafu Hall, they came out, Kwasi Secondary School, he has brought a trunk. So you had all these people outside there shouting and this thing. So my friends decided to go to the other side of the road, and I was carrying my trunk. And it became like a relay race. By the time I had gone past Kwafu, Legon Hall people came out. Then Volta students also came out, the Volta girls. And then I got to Commonwealth. Those who know Commonwealth, there's this thing they call observatory. Late afternoon, people will come and sit at the observatory. So I emerged at the observatory with a trunk on my head at the time that most of the students were there. Hey! So they took the trunk off my head, put it down, went and pondered me proper. And then came back and then said, okay, carry your trunk to the room. I did that. But also that, in those days, we were given what they call the pay as you eat. So they gave you, I think it was 1 cedi 20 pesos for breakfast, 2 cedis 40 for lunch, 240. Now, if you were hungry and you went and ate into more than the 6 cedis a day, then it meant that you were going to carry over hunger for before you got your next payee on Sunday afternoon. So we had a group of friends. By Sunday morning, we were out of money. So we'll go and lie in one of our rooms and then be singing songs and Bob Marley and the gospel until 3 p.m. The beza would come and open the distance. But what was the significance? Why am I telling you this story? A year after I carried the trunk, I decided to contest as the SRC president of Legon. And here I was, one of the poorest boys on campus. I wasn't from those days, the famous schools, Motown, Adisadel, etc. I wasn't in the law school because they were the ones known to this thing. Some days I would go, and then, to campaign, I had to wait to take my student loan. And then a friend of mine accompanied me to Tema Station. I went and bought 2 pairs of trousers, 2 shirts, and pair of clocks. Those were my campaign attire. I only wore the home we were going. And some nights I would sit and ask myself, why did you go to put yourself in this kind of trouble? Why did you do that? But I felt that, the fact that I carried a trunk, the fact that I most of the time had to go hungry on Sunday with my friends, did not mean that I was less equal to anybody on campus. And even the posters, we had friends, the late Ali Yemo and the others, we used this brown paper. We had crayons and wrote on them, vote Tanko for this thing. And because I was so small at that time, they had to say, vote the little giant. And well, I have his permission to mention it. So my opponent was Asamoah Boateng, the former minister of, and then my campaign managers were Do Ajahu, our ex-speaker, and then Bid Zeding. I won. And so I'm telling you this in the sense that your journey makes you. Your journey makes you. The stories you tell yourself and the stories you've been told about yourself makes you. I did not see myself as inferior to anybody at that point. And, yeah. And students' leadership in those days was really something. I think hardly a month or two went by without an Aluta demonstration. But we're not demonstrating over fees or food. Well, in those days, it wasn't a big issue. We're demonstrating over the quality of education. We're demonstrating over the quality of governance in the country. We're demonstrating even over apartheid in South Africa. The motto of the student newsletter was Aluta Continua, that education is a right and not a privilege. So how come that dynamism, that fire in the belly that drove us to go on demonstration, to hold the university authorities to account over quality of teaching, over, things that were happening in the education sector. How come that fire has quenched? That we have students studying under trees, lying on their stomachs to read and write, writing computer exams at the end of their education without having seen a laptop before. Where is the fire? I don't know the Bible very well, so I don't want to presume. But they say what? Your young men shall dream dreams, and your old men shall see visions. Is that it? Or the other way around? Okay. So where is the vision? Our Gen Zs, where is the fire in your stomachs? You say, oh, let me just read and get out of the university. But if you don't help to address the fundamental issues, you will come out of school, and I was telling you that, in those days, they just publish your name in the papers and then you just went. By the time you were completing, Unilever and the others will be on campus recruiting. Yes, it's not possible those days. But how come that we live in a society where if you don't know somebody, after your national service, you are going to stay home for 4 years or more? How come? That we need to find a way of rekindling that fire. When Rawlings overthrew the government in 1981, I was then the SRC president. At that time, he said he was coming to change the society, etc., etc., etc. And what did the student leadership do? We shut down the university for 1 year. Initially, we said it was for 1 term to go and carry cocoa because they said cocoa had been locked up in the hinterland and therefore Ghana was not getting foreign exchange, etc. Where is the fire? And I'm not blaming you, I'm just asking the question. Where is the fire? The fire can be around getting good grades and getting out. But the fire must be bigger than yourself or yourselves if we are going to have a society in which you can fulfill your potentials. And I couldn't be where I am today if within a context such as this. Of course, in those days, we didn't have the influence of the political parties on campus elections. So a lot of it was the face-to-face and the way you were able to stand on the platform to convince people and etc. In those days, there wasn't social media. And up to this, some of my grandchildren were asking, so there was no Google? I said, no. So how are you studying? I said, you go to the library and go and look for the book. And if somebody has taken the book and hidden it, taken an accounting book and hidden it in the zoology section, then you have to listen. So the conditions now are even much better for you to be better educated and better connected. Where is that fire? That people, foreigners come and employ people in Ghana here, and because they don't want to pay social security, because they don't want to provide the fundamental, just the basic conditions, they would employ you 6 months, you fired, and then they re-employ you. Or they tell you that you are under agency. Where is the fire? When we started agitating against the PNDC and looking for democratic governance, it wasn't just the students. The Ghana Medical Association, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, the Ghana Medical Council. Yes, I know the politics are separated us now, but there are some fundamental issues that cut across. And until we are able to reimagine the kind of coalitions that built this country, it's not going to be. Travel to Nairobi, well, anyway, let me not go that route, but I think that this thing is really, really important. And please just draw my attention if my time is drawing here. But I thought that I needed to, before I come to the lessons and the experiences and the recommendations, I just needed to set a few things in context. So please bear with me. So that was my educational journey. Then my friend said I shouldn't move on without talking about my issue with the plantain and beans. That has nothing to do with my leadership, listen. But, you know, in those days, we used to go to the central cafeteria to go and buy food. And they had 3 types of, when you charge for food, it's like you're struggling and etc. In Commonwealth Hall, they say if you don't charge, you don't get the appetite to eat. So you have to go and then if the person says he's going as a Navy, that means he goes under your legs and emerges in front of wherever the food. If he's going as Air Force, you just go backwards, then jump on all of you, and then if he's going as infantry, just go. So we went to the central cafeteria to eat. I bought fried plantain, red, quite hot. And I decided that, when I got there, I said I was going to go Navy. So I went under, emerged. As I was raising my head, somebody had also bought his plantain and beans and just poured the whole thing on top of my head. And I think part of the reason why I have lost my hair is because of the effect of the plantain and beans. So my career in civil society, I was employed in a rural project in northern Ghana as the accountant administrator those days. When we were reading my background, they said I did my first degree in accounting, so that was it. And it was quite interesting because in those days, that was the heady days of, post-structural adjustment, the IMF, etc. So there was almost an attempt to sideline government, to sideline the states, and contract a lot of, the things that the state should be doing to NGOs. So we had what we called, it was an integrated rural development program. And we provided schools, we provided water, whatever, in those days. And then when we also felt that it was important to involve the community in every aspect of the work of the project. So on the board, we had members of the community representatives, so they even outnumbered the others. And one of the most interesting examples was that when they were going to fix our salaries with the staff, it had to go before the board. And they said, oh, you see Tanko, the program coordinator, in those days I think my salary was 3,000 or something. But for those of you who are aware, who know how money is calculated in the rural areas, I think in Ashanti, they say bottom menu will be about 400 cedis. In Dagban, a lot of people are looking askance. It shows how young you are. In the north, they'll say, where the project was, they say Palanse. So imagine translating 3,000 into units of 200. So you say, oh, we see Tanko here. We are going to pay him Palanse, 15 or 20. And they all turned up. What is he going to do with all that money? From that day, every morning I'll wake up, somebody's at my doorstep. Oh, we slept hungry, etc. But it still didn't. The lesson there for me was the fact that community participation is important. Community involvement is critical. But people have to be supported to understand the context. Because for a farmer who has never earned more than 100 cedis, maybe in a whole year, to be told that somebody was going to earn 3,000, Palanse 20 or 15, was incredible. And they were like, oh, the people are coming to chop all the money. And I think part of the challenges that we've had as civil society has been that whole thing about, moving. So we need to involve communities, but within a certain context. If we don't do that, it becomes a problem. The other lesson for me from the work that I did over there was the fact that that project was set up by someone who had gone to Denmark to study, had had discussions with people about what could be done. And they came up with this innovative idea that why don't we twin towns in Denmark with towns in the north. And that friendship program is what has grown to this, where it is today. The example of one person. The example of thinking what is possible. The example of not going to say, give me funds and I'll go and do this, but I want a twinning of the communities so that it will be a relationship between the example of one is always important. And I think that I have to pay tribute to the late Professor Abubakar Al-Hassan, who started that. Then from the program in Dalong, I moved to Care International as the Northern Ghana program's coordinator. But my journey into Care was very interesting. They advertised for a project manager for a food security project. Before God and man, I had never even heard of that, done anything. But I went for the interview, and I got the job. And that was where my trouble started. Because then shortly afterwards, my boss in Accra, I was based in Tamale, said, oh, we need to do subsector analysis. As the project manager in Tamale, could you send me a concept note on how you are going to do it and the instruments and etc. I said, hey, this one. So what did I do? I took my pen and paper and went into Tamale town. I'll meet you. I said, Farouk, have you done subsector analysis before? He said, no. I said, okay, I'll talk to you later. I'll go to Erica. I said, Erica, have you done it before? I said, hey, I was okay, tell me. So I went around from person to person to person to person and wrote down, I synthesized and sent to them. And they came, oh, this is, wow, we didn't know you were such a good food subsector analysis expert. So please lead the team to the field to go and do it. So I had to take money out of my pockets to contract somebody to accompany us as a technical advisor. We went and did it, submitted the report, and then they asked me to go to Kenya and go and present it because actually this one. But the lesson there for me was that I could have said, I haven't done it before. I could have tried to do wishy-washy. I could have said, but why should I go and sit before somebody and ask them to teach me when I'm the program manager? But I went. And even if it meant taking money out of my pocket to go and do it in the field, I had to do it. And I think that laid the foundation also for where I am today. The journey makes the person. The stories you tell yourself makes you. And so these days, at all levels of organization, particularly within civil society, there is this whole thing about why should I go to my fellow civil society person to ask that they teach me. And so you have people mounting platforms and going for meetings and spouting all kinds of jargon that when you put together doesn't really make sense. But you want to feel like very knowledgeable. And I think this whole thing, particularly my Gen Z sons and daughters in the room here, it pays to ask if you don't know. Humble yourself, go and do it. Using the word humble yourself reminds me of another story that when I was working somewhere, and I wouldn't mention it, I overheard some staff talking, and I was the head of the organization. They had made some deadlines, and they were talking, hey, if you go and tell Mr. Tanko hears this, then somebody said, oh, don't worry, he's a humble person, so he won't do anything. And I said, oh, is that your definition of humble? But anyway, so that whole lesson for me from the care one, but also that my boss was this very strong woman, Fiona. She took no prisoners, very, very strong. And I learned a lot from her, lots. And sometimes I say that my name follows me. Those who know the meaning of the name Tanko, that it's a name that is given to a boy who is born after at least 3 girls. Then you are Tanko. I was born after 3, multiples of 3, so many. And I think that name has followed me because all my bosses, and Auntie Esther has just worked out, have been women since I started development work. And very, very, very strong women. Very. And so that whole thing about, the women will come and they are not this, I don't think that's this thing. So from care, I moved to VSO, Voluntary Service Overseas, as the country director for Ghana. VSO in those days used to bring white volunteers, and then later they added a few people from Kenya to come and then volunteer. Which was good because it brought new perspectives. But then you kept on asking yourself, why should it take a young person who has just finished school in the UK to come and teach us how to do the most basic things that we've been doing ourselves? Why are we not providing opportunities for our own people to volunteer, to serve, to learn? Because in those days, if you looked at all those who worked in the British Foreign Service, in the British development distance, almost all of them were former VSO volunteers. So they sent the people here, they come and learn, and then they go back. Same with American Peace Corps. Same with Japanese JICA. Same with Korea Koika. Where is our version? Where are we giving opportunities to young people to volunteer, to work, to learn? We say that volunteerism is at the heart of our culture. If something happens, you don't wait to be invited, you go and help. But that is the traditional, community, local-based ones. How about the children who are not getting teachers in their classrooms? How about those who need mentors? How about even the street children? Can't we as a country set up a scheme that mobilizes our young people, our talents, and gives them the opportunity. Because it's by doing that you are shaped mentally. We talk to a lot of VSO people, and they tell you that apart from the technical skills, things that they learned on the ground, one of the most fundamental learning points for them was to associate with people from a different culture. And so in our secondary school days, you had most of the students coming to Navrongo from the south, and vice versa. And you meet them and they say, oh, when I came to Navrongo and did this, when I went to Tamasco. These days, we don't have that. So you meet somebody in the University of Ghana who attended Achimota, maybe University Primary School, went to Achimota, went to Legon. And therefore, the whole world for him or her is just that radius between Achimota and Legon. Has never been to Nsawam. And we say we are building a country that is unified. If we don't know about each other, how can we see each other as brothers and sisters? So that whole thing about, I know it might be too expensive to continue with those boarding schools of old, but what are we replacing? How are we making the young people to know about other parts of this country, to associate with people who are different from them? So that they see you and they say, oh, unse obi ofio. And up there too, we say, oh, you are a Kambonga, you don't listen. Those perceptions, those perceptions can easily be addressed if a quarter of the monies we spent on all kinds of frivolous things in this country were plowed into a volunteering scheme that enables students to volunteer, to learn about their country, and to learn skills, and to put that on their CVs. Anyway, the other thing about my time in VSO, which was kind of, my uncle in the north used to sell tea. And a lot of the white volunteers would go there, to go and drink tea. And it was an honor for him. You just tell the people around that you see all these white people. My son is a country director, so all those white people in the country are under him. It was a source of pride. So when I told him that I was moving from VSO to Star Ghana, and he said, what is the title? I said, oh, Deputy Program Manager. He said, look at the way you are spoiling things. When I say you are country director, it has a lot of weight. But to go and say you are Deputy Program Manager, so for him, he's never been happy with the fact that I don't have country against my title, because it didn't really show the, and we may laugh at it, but these things mean a lot. Sometimes when we say, oh, we like titles and etc., if you get back, if you meet people you meet them at where you met them, or where they are. Yes, you meet people at where they are. You realize the importance of what we, the westernized, Ghanaians take as so frivolous. These are not important, but these are extremely. Oh, we spend too much time on greetings. But greetings, maybe in those contexts, are ways of connecting with each other, are ways of acknowledging people. So let them do away with all these long greetings and then let's get to the heart of the issue. You don't do that. Anyway, so from VSO, and I'm getting to the end of the biographical part of it, so that so from VSO I joined Star Ghana Foundation. At that time it was a program. I started as a deputy team leader, rose up to become the program director, and for the 10 years, that the Star Ghana program was there. The key thing about the Star Ghana program was that it was set up by 4 donors. They pooled their money into a fund to use to help to support civil society in the country. And the program did a lot of very good things. But the question then is, where was Ghanaian money in those days? And so no matter how hard you tried, what the donors feel are the priorities are the ones that you would have to go forward with. It's their money. It's British taxpayers' money. And sometimes, some of the things that you go through, when I was with VSO, we went on trek, we were using, I think it was a Nissan Patrol. We were at a restaurant eating in the evening when this elderly white man came, said, oh, he was looking for those who have the VSO vehicle. And so we are the ones. Do we know that VSO is funded by the British taxpayer? I said, yes. So what is wrong with buying the good old Land Rover instead of how can we use their taxpayers' money to go and buy a Japanese car and be driving? That is the kind of some of the things that you go through when your development and your work is funded by outsiders. And for those who will be quick to say, oh, ask for CSOs, it's not just CSOs. Take our government's budget and look at what is funded by our so-called development partners. And you would understand why, up till now, we are not addressing the systemic challenges that confront whether our education system or our health system or etc. We've been to the IMF for 16 times, or is it the 17th, Masa? 17. And it's the same problem, the same issues. So we can't ask ourselves, what kind of advice is the IMF giving us that we've had to go there 17 times? Isn't it time to step back and ask ourselves, what is it? But because the development is not funded by us, because it is their money, the prescription, the diagnosis is even something that, aligns to what they see. And from the diagnosis, you come to the solution. So I think that fundamentally, we need to begin to think, how do we fund our own development? And which is what led to the formation or the setting up of the Star Ghana Foundation, to take off from where the Star Ghana program ended, but focus on the issues of, one, active citizenship. And I've talked about the issue around volunteerism. I've talked about, the way, people took responsibility. Our fight for independence. Who were those who were in the forefront? We have marginalized and silenced and erased the contributions of women. But who were those who funded Nkrumah in those days? Nkrumah came back from the US, a broke man. It was the market women in Makola and Tensu who funded him. But they've been erased. They funded not because they loved the look of Nkrumah, but they funded because they thought that they were contributing to something. The veranda boys and girls, they didn't fund, but they contributed of their labor and skills. If we look throughout, and back to the issue of the students and national development, I think it was 73 or 74, Dawinya, Ochirko, all those dams, irrigation projects, they were constructed partly with the labor of students during the long vacation. The National Service Scheme that people are taking glory for, it was a National Union of Ghana students that initiated the discussions around this. Where is the fire? Where are those examples of Ochireko, Dahunya, and the National Service Scheme? So the whole thing around the national active citizenship and philanthropy. Philanthropy in the sense that we need to begin looking at funding our own development processes. That's the only way we can own it. Because you submit a proposal and the donor tells you this doesn't align with our policy, so we wouldn't fund it. And what happens? So you have to. And we got to the point where even the communities, some of the communities in the north got this thing. So when you are coming, they ask these people, what are they interested in hearing? It's a gender. Oh, then as soon as you get there with the consultants, oh, as for this, our community, we are gender. Oh, I mean, we get up in the morning, you greet your wife 2 times. In the afternoon, you do this, you do. Because they know, I mean, Chino Achebe says what? If the hunter learns to shoot without missing, the bird learns to fly without perching. you adapt to the circumstances. And so our communities know what to say in order to get the funding. Twisting the whole distance, that if we started from a more endogenous, approach, starting from within, starting with the local knowledge that we have, I think a lot of what we are facing now would be. And when I talk about donors, I'm not just talking about the USAIDs and etc. Even we do the intermediaries. Somebody said, you don't meet a proper British man until you go to the British High Commission and meet the local security guard. Or you go to one of the visa processing centers and you meet the local staff. They behave more British or more American than even the Americans themselves. As soon as you get close to those distances, then you assume that this thing. And a lot of our intermediary civil society organizations become the local FCDOs, the local USAIDs, the local DANIDES, So we become almost like a transmission belt. The orders come from the British Foreign Service. It goes to the British FCDO. It gets to us. We also go to our communities and tell them that the best way of doing this is this. The best way of doing this is that, based on, the assumptions of those who are giving us the money. Let's just take the issue of the concept of value for money. You want to do something, they come and then assess it for value for money. Whose value? How do you define value? That sometimes people in the communities will say, this gives me more respect. And the more respect I have, the greater my social capital. And therefore, if anything happens to me, I would have people coming around to help. That is value for them. But we will look at value against what? The 4 E's. Efficiency, economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and whatever else, follows. So we need to begin to look at distance that way. So that's been the journey of my life in development work. What have I learned? And so I'm coming to the end of this. I hope it's useful, and I hope there will be some questions. On the lighter side is our fascination with titles. And sometimes the way in which those titles take over your names. I have gone through a number of titles. I was a program coordinator, I was administrator, I was program coordinator, I was program manager, I was a program director, and each time people come to you, oh, PC. And the next time it changes, PM. The next time it changes, ED. I said, but why is my name in all this? So it's the same fascination with the titles that we get to the point where everybody wants to be called an honorable. And even the UK, where they started this thing, they don't add it to the name. They don't add it to the name. They say Farouk Brahma, the honorable member for Ayawaso. But they don't call him honorable this thing. But dare you call even the lowest person in parliament without adding the honorable, and you would see where you see your levels. So the first thing is that the way civil society has engaged with our country's development has followed a certain trend, largely dictated by the outside, the funders. So around the 1980s, when we went through the structural adjustments, and then they said because of the cost of structural adjustment, the implications, the effect on people, we set up what we call the PAMSCAD, Program of Action to Mitigate the Social Cost of Adjustments. And so the money started flowing to NGOs. Then this whole neoliberal thing that, government has no business doing A, B, C, D, E, F. So NGOs should step into that gap or that distance. And so monies were given. And things that government should do, things that should be done with government, NGOs, we assumed that the mere fact that you were working with an NGO or a CSO conferred on you, the kind of knowledge that somebody who has worked for 10 years in the Ghana Health Service, an extension officer who has worked for 15 years in the Ministry of Agriculture doesn't have. So you take a program officer or project officer, 2 years, so the person says, I'm going to build their capacity. Build whose capacity? So that kind of money led to an arrogance of this thing, which has led to a certain pushback. I don't know if you get the point that I'm making. And some have gone to meet farmers and they ask, let me see your palm. Have you held a hoe before? Have you held a cutlass before? And because of that, we ignored, as I'm coming back to the whole issue about the building from within. There was the example of a rice project in the north that, based on feasibility and whatever, they decided to introduce what they called a quick and high-yielding variety of rice. And the fact that the farmers were not taking it up, people were like, our people, they are very conservative, they are this, they don't like change. But when they sat down with the farmers and asked, the farmers said, look, this rice that you have introduced, it ripens at the same time as we have to go and pick the granules off the field. It ripens at the same time that we have to do A, B, C, D, E, F. And those ones are so time-bound that if you don't go and pick the granules off at that time, then you've lost it. So we prefer the varieties that ripen when we have finished with these basic things. We went in with what? The technical solution without what? The contextual analysis. And a story that I have told over and over and over, so those who have heard it, please forgive me. But that whole story about, I was working on a project in the north. We said we wanted to improve rural livelihoods. We wanted to improve the incomes of women or households. By doing what? By introducing new varieties of fowls, chicken. That if we brought in these new varieties, they will cross the local varieties. They will get better breeds of this, and therefore they will fetch more money at the market. Very good logical analysis. So we went to Dako farms in Kumasi and bought truckloads of day-old chicks. Came and fed them, gave them all the medication. And when it was time to sell to the communities, people would come and look and say, oh, fine, we'll go and come. They never came back. While these fowls were there chopping our money and all those things, you go and look, we'll go and come. They never came back. So we thought it was the price. So we reduced the price. And still. So we went and were asking some elderly people, said, but why are they not buying the distance? Because if you had these fowls to yours, you would get better breeds. The better breeds will give you, but you people who in a local community in the north will get up one day and say, oh, I feel like eating chicken, so go and catch one of my fowls and then slaughter. No. The only times that and somebody even jokingly said that the only time you see somebody eating chicken on a normal day is either that the fowl is sick and has to be slaughtered, or the person is sick and has to eat something, maybe the medication involves this thing. But on a normal day, when you go to the market to buy fowl, you are buying it maybe for some spiritual thing, some sacrifices, etc. And the kinds of fowls you buy for those spiritual purposes are usually black, they are red, they are white. That you don't buy spotted fowls. Actually, the Dagbani word for this is usually useless fowl. And that all the fowls that people have gone to bring are the spotted fowls. So who is going to buy those ones? And then you end up having only spotted fowls in your this thing, and you can't use them for anything. And that's why people are not buying. See? We start from the fact that we are the experts, but we don't contextualize development. We don't build from within. We don't start from the local knowledge and build out of that and to say what is possible. Which is why we have E-blocks standing there unused, which is why we have chips compounds standing outside the communities, which is all those things that we don't start with the local knowledge and build out of that. Are you with me on that? Okay. Mr. MC, I'll finish soon. Just that sometimes I just get carried away. The second thing is that civil society is changing. Civil society is evolving. Gone are the days when the leading CSOs, the most effective ones, were the big ones with offices and executive directors, etc. Now, because of social media, because of all those things, we are seeing the emergence of less formally organized CSOs. We are seeing a lot of organizing taking place online. Look at the Gen Z demonstrations in Kenya. Everything was online. You know, even look at our own attempts at this thing. So the nature of civil society in Ghana and the ways of working are changing. And until we begin to look at that and see how we adapt, how we incorporate those things, how we move away from the bricks and mortar, you know, CSO structures to less formally organized ones, we may be running into problems. We also have a second development within, or trend within civil society. If you look at IDEG, if you look at CDD, if you look at IEA, if you look at wherever, ISODEC, they were set up by visionary leaders. They were set up by people who wanted to make a change, who would do anything. And Tessa that wouldn't want me to mention her name, but when they were working in NIMA 441, ISODEC, they were working all over the places. Now, over time, we have moved away from the visionary founders to the development bureaucrats. So we want an expert in M&E. We want an expert in gender and inclusion. We want an expert in advocacy. So these people are coming there as technical experts. But as to whether that fire is in their belly, as to whether it is to make a change or to earn an income, it's for you to. So as we transition from those founder leaders, the question, the challenge would be, because I'm not saying that it's either or. You need those technical people. But how do we ensure that they are technical people with an appetite to change the world and not an appetite towards the next funding opportunity, that's an appetite for the salary at the end of the month. So this is a dilemma that civil society is facing that I think we need to. Leadership style. A quote that I have here, that the longer I lead, the more I realize how much I owe to the communities and the organizations that I've worked with. We've tried in this current world to say this is the style that works. But we all know that leadership is situational. I come back to that whole thing that your journey makes you. The journey I have traveled from my primary school in Palugu through to the secondary school in Avrongo, through to the Ponding in Legon, and through the distance, have shaped the kind of leadership style that I have adopted. But that doesn't mean that it is a style that works for everybody. The only thing that I think we all need to inculcate is that whole thing about nurturing the next generation. We are where we are today because people took a chance on us, because people supported us, that people helped us even when we made mistakes, to nurture, But these days, we don't see a lot of that. You try, they say, these Gen Z people, they are too uppity. They are They are rude, they are arrogant, they come and then they listen. But that is their context. How do we nurture? Where is the process of nurturing the next? I mean, when they interviewed Bill Clinton, the former American president, he said, you know, the Americans had this, I think, is it a youth leadership or something program that took them on an excursion to the White House, and he met John Kennedy. And that was where the light bulb lit in his mind. Where are we providing those opportunities for even the NUCS leaders on campuses? That they move beyond TESCON and TANE and engage and open their minds. We're talking about academia, you know, linking up with civil society. For me, a more fundamental lesson will be, how are we opening the minds of our student leaders? That they see it beyond the student dues. Things have changed. When I was Legon SRC president, I didn't have access to the checkbook of the SRC. It was the dean of students. We needed something, we went, justified, that he had to sign and all those things. The only perk I had was that I had a bungalow to myself on Legon campus, and I was a big man in those days. That style maybe was suitable in those days. The dean of students holding your checkbook may not be suitable, but I think that we are leaving the student leaders to themselves, to their own devices. Nature abhors a vacuum. And if we don't do that, the political parties would step in. And so by the time they emerge out of the universities, they see the world in two colors, MPP or NTC. And every developmental initiative is factored through that prism. We need to tell them that beyond MPP and NTC, there is Ghana. There are some things that cut across. People who died over, how many of you have heard of the party that used to, whose slogan was Ababa Say? Yeah. Or NAL, National Alliance of Liberals. People died over those parties. Where are those parties now? People broke relationships, destroyed their families because they were NAL or they were Baba Say. Where are those ones now? But the communities are still there, the families are still there. So beyond the parties, there is Ghana. Beyond the parties, there is your community. And I think that we need to find ways of ensuring that our people look at that. I would summarize a few of this. Then we talk about civil society. And one of my bosses, Charles Abogri, talked about uncivil society. That not all civil society is civil. Not all civil society is about doing good. Some civil society is about something else. And I think it is for us to not bulk off all of them into one, but to begin to nurture, to support, to strengthen civil society. Active citizenship, I've already talked about that. I wouldn't go into details. It says that the simplest definition of active citizenship, when you see a need, when you see a gap, when you see a situation, step in. Step in with your resources, step in with your skills, step in with your social capital. That's just active citizenship. You don't need to be on the streets holding the placards to be an active citizenship. An active citizenship could actually be supporting young people in your community, small children that you organize camps for, or all the way up to. So active citizenship is not just about politics. And I would urge all of us to ask ourselves what we can do. The late Robert Kennedy said, some people see problems and ask why. Others develop solutions and ask why not. And I think we should be ones. But if we want the youth to be active citizens, we need to start from where they are. We need to understand them and to contextualize whatever we want to do there. And to start early. Last year, I went on a trip to Switzerland. And I think we were in Geneva waiting at a place there. And I saw these children starting from those who were around 5 years or even younger, holding brooms, holding these things, and accompanied by elder grown-ups. And I said, what is it? They said, oh, every year they organize this program where the children go around and do something. So there was no death. I mean, they should have brought them to one of our streets in Accra here. But they said they were going around picking rubbish and all those things. So imagine every year, these children from 5 years start doing something. By the time they grow up, it is in them. Which is why the Japanese football fans went to the World Cup. After the match, their team lost. But they stayed back and cleaned up where they sat before they left. They did. You will do this and then just throw it away, forget about this thing. I visited a Danish family, and then at the dinner table, my host asked for, did I bring pictures? I said, oh yes, let me see. So I took out my phone to open and show. And their son, who was just about 10, 11 years, said, oh, that no mobile phones at the dinner table. Oh, as if the ground should open for me to go. But then it helps, so he knows that there are some occasions where you give people your attention. The best gift you can give to somebody is attention. But if I'm speaking to you and you're on your phone, if you're in the meeting, I'm giving this talk, I have spent nights to prepare it, and then I look around and half of the people are on their phones like that, you know. So I think we need to start young. And I get back to what I said about my father, that it starts from the home. There are certain things you can't subcontract. Then the last point about philanthropy. Philanthropy is about mobilizing our resources to help. Philanthropy has been part of our culture. It's something that we do it. In those days, when there was a funeral or you heard something, you took a bowl of corn or whatever, said, this is my contribution. The women go there and say they are going to help with the work. That is, part of this thing. These days, because of how the society is, we've monetized it. But the danger is that if we don't link philanthropy to social justice, then we may end up burdening the communities. There's no school. Contribute and we'll build a school. Why haven't we asked why the district assembly or the government has not constructed it? So we're almost like giving the governments a free pass. Do you get the point I'm making? That we need to ask why. Rather than say, oh, there's no hospital, so contribute and we'll build a hospital. There's no school, contribute and we'll build. Yes, they contribute because they own it, because it's part of their lives. But we also need to hold people to account too. So philanthropy without social justice is, in a way, somebody says, a new form of taxation. So we do that. And then I talked about the stories we tell. The stories have to be in the languages and the context that resonates with people. We can't, as civil society, take over governance. It is not our responsibility, it is not our mandate, it's nowhere written in the Constitution that civil society has to do this. We facilitate, we speak truth to power, we support. But at the end of the day, the collaboration between civil society and government is important. USAID got up overnight and cut funding. Lots of organizations have folded up. Has government folded up? So if development were focused on just the NGOs, what would have happened? So I think that it's important. That the challenge has always been that when you collaborate with government and tomorrow they do something that is wrong and you talk about it, they say, oh, but we thought that we were friends. Or why are you criticizing us? That ability to separate the different things, that the fact that I criticize you does not mean that we are enemies. We are speaking to truth to power. We are speaking constructively. And I had a very interesting experience of this when I was being interviewed for a post in the north. And the interview took 2 forms. The Ghanaian board interviewed me first, and then the Danish board interviewed me second. The Ghanaian board, they called me informally. Oh, these are the things that we think you need to improve upon, and etc. and etc. And then the day of the interview, it was more like a formality, So then I got to Denmark. The board chair was the one who picked me up from the airport. He and the wife and the children. We talked, we laughed, etc. I stayed overnight with them over dinner. We were talking. They never for once even mentioned the interview. The next morning we had breakfast, we talked, and etc. They even picked me in their car to the interview place. Then as soon as we entered the room and started the interview, it wasn't like this was the man who came and picked me from the airport, And then when we finished and I was asking him, he said, oh, you are our friend, but the friendship does not extend to the work. That's when I was criticizing you and I was asking you those questions in the room, it wasn't because the friendship has ended. So we need to separate that. And I think our relationship with government has to take that reality, that the fact that the minister is my friend or this and does not mean that if I go to the press and talk about something that should be heard by the whole country, it means that I am not part of them. What else? With nature leaders, I've talked. Culture matters, I've talked about it. But we also talk about culture and say, well, let's start from the culture of the people. Let's start on that. Let's build on that. But let's also challenge it. Culture that is static, somebody said tradition is a dictatorship by dead people. Tradition is dictatorship by dead people. This is how our fathers used to do it. So this is how we have to do it. But our fathers did it that way because of certain things. Don't sweep at night, because if you sweep at night, you may, that it will bring you bad luck, it will do the same. Because in those days, they didn't have electricity. They didn't have all those things. So you didn't know what you may be sweeping away, isn't it? But then your young boy whistles at night, and then whistling brings snakes. But where I'm living at Sakumono, where is the snake that will come when he whistles? So we need to appreciate the culture, but we also need to challenge it as we go. And we've demonized aid, but there is no country that has developed without external support. There is no country. If anybody tells you that, they are lying. After the Second World War, the US had what they call the Marshall Plan that provided massive funding for the rebuilding of Western Europe. China's infrastructure development started with loans from Japan. So it is not about receiving external funding. It is the kind of funding and what it is used for. That if we go and borrow money in order to celebrate Ghana at 50, it will come back to bite us. If we borrow money in order to improve our infrastructure in the cities, we will reap the benefits. Go to Dakar. From Dakar Airport, the train station at the airport is almost like an airport in itself. And it takes you around. Go to Nairobi. Even Dar es Salaam. The mass bus transport, or whatever it is we call here, that we started and stopped. What they have started here, over there, you see it and ask, did we go or did we come? And so, let's bring in external support. Let's contextualize it. This is the journey of my life. These are some of the experiences I want to share with you. And thank you very much for that.
Please, Your Excellency, Mr. President, please come. No, you see, it's because, let's give another round of applause. You see, we are in the university, and these days, let's ask the presidents are Your Excellencies.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Yes. You see, you are. Anyway, Star Ghana Foundation, they have
Actually, this one.
Made us so proud.
You want to say anything?
Not yet.
Okay. The first time I heard Speaker of a Parliament known as one of the student speakers being addressed as Right Honorable, I was shocked. And the SIC President, His Excellency, that's what they do these days. You know, so in your time, yes, you were just SIC President. But these days, Your Excellency, Right Honorable, lots of titles. You know, in a country where, anyway, let me reserve my comments. I was going to say that today, if you're an engineer, you add it to your name, engineer this. Yeah, engineer. Now if we do pharmacy, you do pharmacists, you know, very soon we'll add more because we like titles. But thank you very much, Ibrahim-Tanko Amidu. I like the fact that, you know, you people learned it the hard way when you decided to sell chicken or fowl to the people without consulting them. Farouk, who just may have stepped out, would tell you that it's become a feature of our development. Not long ago, we're talking about beautifying Nima, and unfortunately, the people who stay at Nima, who live at Nima, were not aware of the plans that the Works and Housing Minister had for them. And the question is, how do you develop a place when the people who are supposed to be beneficiaries of that development have no idea? Consistently, we have talked about that development being participatory, but its implementation has never been. You talked about you know, volunteering and the fact that we should be able to move to different parts of our country. And you know, as a man from the Western region, which I know many people who know me will be surprised, having lived in the greater Accra region, but having spent my formative years in the Volta region, I understand what it means when you say people must move around. Because all the stereotypes people have about people, when you live in those communities, you realize people are just not like that. So I speak of it, and I mean, in my world, I do not think that people, by virtue of where they come from, means they are dangerous. But, you know, if you don't know somebody, that's one of the things we do here. And when you live in places, when you volunteer in different places, you better understand the people. And that in itself helps your worldview. So thank you once again. Let's give him a huge round of applause. Okay, so let's move on. And Mrs. Abaloko tells me that we need to have a launch of a book, which will be handled by her. So let's welcome her with a round of applause. The Director of Public Affairs, UPSA, Abaloko.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. We've been sitting for a while, but it's for a good cause. I believe we've learned quite a lot. We came tabula rasa. I'm sure we are going with the lessons, you know, and we are better for it. That is what UPSA is known for. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. So my job is simple. I've been tasked to launch the book. The team at IWES, led by the former director, Dr. Mary Siao, I believe the most hardworking person I've met on this campus. And believe you me, she used to act as the HR director, and boy, you had to work for the money. And so that's how she's worked with the team. And I'm not surprised that this lecture is in her honor. So let's give her a warm clap and appreciate her for her stellar leadership. And rightfully so, the new acting director of IWES, hardworking, par excellence, Dr. They have put this book together, a compilation of 5 thought-provoking research work from the work that Dr. Gerald put together on the civil service and how it's being politicized now. She used the case study of the US, but I believe it resonates with us here in Ghana, where civil servants are pushed out, governed by the other, and they didn't just sit down, they did research work, and I believe that if we lay our hands on this book, we should read. The impact of COVID, it impacted us in our personal lives, psychologically, on work, people lost their work, and so we still feel the impact of COVID wherever we find ourselves. I believe the last one was done by the, should I say former Chief Justice or Chief Justice, on harnessing good work ethics for higher productivity. I believe that this book, the compilation, will inform policy. We will reflect on it when we lay our hand. Let's go and look for it and read for ourselves. And I believe that it should not find itself on shelves and that we should read. And I will urge Doc, let's get it to Parliament. Let them read also. To the policymakers, I believe many times we do all this great work in academia and it stays here. So I will challenge you so that we'll reach out. And so I have the singular honor to declare the compilation of the midday lectures for the past 7 years duly launched. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Abba, I like the fact that it should find itself into Parliament. And before it gets into Parliament, I'm sure for those of us who are here also, we must read it, so that when we meet our members of Parliament, we can tell them a thing or two. They're supposed to be our representatives, but they normally represent their political parties. And they don't represent us in any form, unless we identify with the things they do. Do we? I can't hear you. People are scared in this country. Anyway, let's move on. And in moving on, we'll invite Dr. Esther Ofeabwaje, who is a local government expert and immediate past executive director of the Star Ghana Foundation, to give us her closing remarks. Her brief remarks, I beg your pardon. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
I don't do brief remarks. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can I stand on the protocols already observed here? I acknowledge all of you dignitaries. I want to thank you for a very exciting morning. I want to very much send our gratitude to the Vice Chancellor and, the Vice Chancellor and the Institute of Work, Employment and Society for this innovative and exciting discussion around the theme celebrating workers in a changing world, and the fact that the discussion has recognized the diversity of the world of work and the intersectional dimensions that they are. The fact that we are moving towards greater integration based on the issues that we find ourselves confronted with. May Day is dedicated to workers, and I think the increasing appreciation of civil society as a partner in development is encouraging. I don't know, but when I was coming here, I was thinking of the fact that civil society itself has evolved over the 30, 35, 40 years that Alhaji Tanko was reflecting. The work that civil society has changed enormously, moving from the relief focus to the more developmental and service delivery dimensions, to the very much policy influencing presence that it has now. I want to say a very big thank you to my colleague and my brother, Farouk. Farouk was congratulating the unsung heroes. For me, he's one of the unsung heroes, and the critical work that he's done for the past 3 decades about urban conditions of living, celebrating Kai, looking after the social conditions, social insurance, and all of those kinds of things. If he talks about the informal economy as a living, breathing part of our lives and what sustains Ghana, he knows very much what he's talking about. Farouk knows what he's talking about. He's been in the trenches a very long time. And say, I salute you, that matter. Now to our main speaker, another brother, friend, and everything else. You were usurping his post for me. I was the governing council chair. I was not the executive director. But for the sake of Tanko's uncles, I think we need to change his title. He shouldn't be executive director anymore. He should be national executive director. And we'll make that recommendation to the Star Ghana Governing Council. Otherwise, they won't know that he's commanding more white people than he was in that capacity in Tamale. So please assure your uncles that we will change your title. I'll make a spirited effort to do that. And I was telling Erica that they should have started ponding you from the main gate. They shouldn't have waited till Commonwealth to pond. They should have ponded you at the main gate. Because Tanko is my contemporary. At that time, we all knew that you don't go to university with trunk. So the 2 people he was working with, how did they know that they shouldn't come with trunk? And you, where were you? They should have started there. At that time, there was a big pond at the main gate. They should have started there. When they got in front of the library post, they should have ponded you there and ponded you the next one before they get to Commonwealth. 3 pondings at the very least. Anyways, those who know Tanko know that he's led a very, very illustrious life. What he gave was a very abbreviated version of what he has contributed to this country. And the lessons he has shared today are very important, and we are taking a lot with us. I just want to look at 2 or 3 and then we'll wind this up. The issue around the influence of formative experiences and what our parents put into parenting, even though they didn't have much, is very, very critical, and we must look at it to ensure that we build the relationships beyond throwing money at the problem. The issue of building the capacity of young people. There was a Harvard Business Review that looked at leadership building, and it actually looked at a case study of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. It said when you see their Mormon buildings with the white, you always see young people, and however hot the temperature, they are in suits with tie and all of that. It says that they are inculcating a certain ethos in those young people. Go to difficult places, learn the culture, solve problems, live in it, but at all times, maintain your standards. Maintain your standards. So that they discussed, but I was struck that this was a deliberate inculcation of a certain leadership ethos. So maybe we need to do more and be more deliberate about some of these kinds of things. So I agree with you, my brother, in that regard, that the fact that we should be able to encourage our young people to have an appetite, to change the world. The fire is there. We are not harnessing it enough, and we are not harnessing it with them. We are harnessing them, without giving them the respect of charting their own cost. The issue of beyond MPP and NDC, there is Ghana. There is Ghana. There is Ghana. Beyond our political parties, there is Ghana, and we need to be focusing on that. The issue of an uncivil society. We are increasingly becoming an uncivil society. And therefore, we need to be able to pay attention to make our society livable. Active citizenship, the advice you've given is very timely, that we should step into any gap we perceive with our skills and whatever resources that we have. Linking philanthropy to social justice as a new form of, that if we don't link philanthropy to social justice, and we don't encourage government to do what government is responsible for doing, would be a very sad commentary on the effort that we are building. As for the last one that you said about tradition being a dictatorship by dead people, I would love to say somewhere, but some chiefs will kill me. So I've learned that and put it in my book. So I want to say a very big thank you to all of you for supporting this process. The need that we must be able to accept help, but contextualize it and tailor. You see, if you get help from somebody without having an agenda, they script your agenda. They will script your agenda. So have an agenda and invite somebody to help you. Don't let somebody decide where you are taking your agenda. I want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Sound, the former director, in whose honor this was organized. Madam, we salute you. You've done well. You've played your part. And give her another warm round of applause. I know this book will do a lot, and it's a testimony to what you have put in here, even before you became the director of the institute. I know in another life. You don't know me, but I know in another life. So we salute you for all of this. Madam, thank you for having us. Papa Moa, thank you also, for also having us. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
We can definitely do better. Okay, so we're gradually getting to the end of the program. And at this point, I'd invite Dr. Osai, who is acting director, to join me here because we need to do some presentations. Let's welcome her. Okay. Should I give you the microphone?
Okay. So.
And who takes the first presentation will go to
Dr. Isiang and Auntie, Dr. Mary Nana Isiang.
Great.
Auntie. Yes.
Auntie.
This is a surprise to her. She is. Yes. Yeah. So this is from IWES. That is your hard work. Everything. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you. And congratulations. Great. The next presentation.
Alhaji Ibrahim-Tanko Amidu.
Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, yes. So, thank you. Thank you very, very much for the experiences shared. Very rich and we appreciate.
Great. Well done.
Yes. And for Dr. Esther Ofer-Boaje, and I call her, she's my mentor, and that's my I'm her mentee.
Oh, great.
Yes, her product. So, Auntie, thank you for the journey so far. You are not done. Thank you so much.